Hi, everybody. Welcome to College and Career Readiness Night. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to showcase some of what we do here in District 214 and give you some information that you can use to make good choices about where you're headed, whether you're a student or a parent who's advising a student. My name is Paul Kelly. I am the principal at Elk Grove High School, one of the schools that has not only participants in this pathway, but also one of our panelists tonight, Radoslav Lukars, who will be joining us in a little bit, who went to Elk Grove and is participating in this panel, so as well as others. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to ask our panelists to briefly introduce themselves to you so you know who it is that you're hearing from and learning from. And so what I'd like to do is kind of go in for panelists, we'll go in the order that I spoke of earlier. And so we will start off with Gary and Jack, who are joining us from American Airlines, and I'll let them introduce themselves and their roles.
Good evening. My name is Gary Percy. I work for American Airlines. I've been here for, it'll be 36 years come December. Time flies. I'm a maintenance crew chief. I have a crew under me of anywhere between 10, 20, up to 30 people. And I'm in charge of moving airplanes to and from the terminal, as well as also maintain the airplanes and come down here to the hangar. And my colleague is Jack O'Callahan.
Good evening. My name is Jack O'Callahan. I've been with American for 34 years. I work with Gary. I'm a technical crew chief, which means I'm a troubleshooter. I work with his mechanics and assist them in troubleshooting and aircraft repair. I also do on-the-job training and teach our mechanics how to taxi the aircraft at O'Hare Field. And like I said, time flies. We've been having fun, and hopefully we can share our experiences with you kids.
Great. All right, Chris, if you don't mind, jump in.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Chris Stevens. I'm from Lewis University. Also an A&P mechanic. I work for Lewis University Aviation Services. Also an instructor of aviation at Lewis.
Thanks, Chris. All right, Rich.
Good evening. My name is Rich Hyde. I am the aerospace engineering instructor at Hersey High School. I also teach the Project Lead the Way engineering courses there as well. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, Rich. All right, Miguel.
Hi, good evening. My name is Miguel. I'm a recent graduate from Elk Grove High School and a current student at Lewis University.
Excellent. Thanks, Miguel. And as I mentioned earlier, Radoslav Lukars, he will be joining us briefly. Oh, there he is. Radik, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Radoslav Lukars. I'm a Lewis University student. This is my second year at Lewis.
All right, great. All right, well, thanks everyone. As you can see, we have a really top-notch group of people here to share information. And if you can't learn something from the people who are actually doing the job, as well as the post-high school instructors of that field, as well as the high school instructors of that field, and students who went through our programs, I'm not sure, I don't think it gets any better than that. And so, plus the quality of these people is outstanding. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with all of you again. Again, we really appreciate you being here for this. Lots of panels happening this evening. Again, I'm Paul Kelly, and for your reference, the list of our participants on the panel tonight is here. Before we ask questions of our panelists, I want to share with you, as part of our college and career Discover Your Future guide, each pathway has a sequence of courses that are a part of that pathway. And as you can see on this, there, of course, are the courses in the sequence for those specifically in engaging and wanting to go into the aviation itself. And you can see students can take automotive systems, introduction to engineering design, Project Lead the Way course, and then would move on into aerospace engineering. Students take physics or AP physics, and then finally College Aviation Academy, which is an amazing opportunity that is not and not available to most students. We're extraordinarily lucky in District 214 to have this opportunity. As you can see, the remainder of those courses that you can see on this flow chart, English, math, social science, etc., those are courses that every student is going to take in some form or another. And so you've got your core courses that are required, of course, by all of our students. But what's really an amazing opportunity in our district is we've got the chance for students who opt into these sequences of courses to really get a feel for what they might want to do and to pursue them. Students are not locked into these. It's not that once they've decided they think they want to do this, they're required to be there, which is an important distinction. And it's very different between high school and college. As you know, paying money to take courses and entering a program, you're pretty much committed. You're paying money and you've declared majors, et cetera. In high school, a lot of students want to find out, do they even want to go into these things? And so while it looks like a pathway that is sort of locked in, ideally a student really loves it, feels it, and they lock in. But if a student is feeling like they wanted to try it, we really encourage that right out of the gate for students to get a feel for the options that we've got. And so I wanted to show this to you now so you can see that this isn't just courses that are randomly thrown in. What this is it's a pathway intended to help students really see a future for themselves and to proceed. Okay, so let's go ahead with and get into our panelist questions. So we're talking about aviation. We're talking about obviously maintenance and repair and all the facets of this field. So let's hear from Jack and Gary a little bit about what does their day look and feel like, and how has that changed over time? You've both been with American for quite some time. What is the job like right now, and what do you find to be the most rewarding parts of that role?
The airline industry has gone through a lot of changes over the years, deregulation up until now with the pandemic. But aircraft maintenance remains basically the same thing. You fix airplanes. The airplanes are different. They're a lot more computerized now than they used to be. Our newest airplane, the 787, is basically a flying computer, and it's made out of plastic. It's rewarding. Actually, every day has its rewards. You come into work, you have your crews, you figure out major problems with airplanes, and when you accomplish something, it does give you a very good, all these years still gives you a warm feeling inside.
I think a big rewarding part of my day is when I have a new mechanic and we're doing some training and you can see the light bulb go off in his head and he finally understands what it is he's working on. Like Gary said, when we started working on airplanes, they had round radial engines, piston-driven aircraft. Springs and cables were the control systems. They were made out of aluminum. Now the aircraft are made out of carbon fiber and advanced plastics and are driven by computers with fiber optic networks. It is truly an industry that has changed before our eyes, has become very complex. And I think that this field attracts people who likes to solve puzzles and work with your hands.
If I could add one more thing, what I try and instill in the newer mechanics, and I don't have too many new mechanics on my crew, but even older veterans such as ourselves, don't be afraid to say that you don't know. I go to Jack all the time for technical advice, and I'm not ashamed to admit I don't know. In this field, that's very critical. I mean, you don't want to go out on a $200 million airplane not knowing something. That's why I'm here. That's why Jack is here. So you don't be afraid to say you don't know.
Nobody knows all the questions or all the answers. And there is a tremendous amount of people throughout our industry that you can just pick up the phone and say, I need help. And that's how we learned, is when we hired on, the guys that were senior to us, they taught us how to fix airplanes and they taught us the tricks of the trade and how to make the life a little bit easier for you. Matter of fact, Gary and I both had commented that when we started and we were working with guys that were in their 50s and it was like, well, look at those old guys. Well, now it's us. So now it's time. Now it's time for us to encourage the new breed of mechanics and I guess they're called technicians now, but now it's our job to train and encourage the young people nowadays to get involved in learn about an industry that we found fascinating for more than 3 decades.
Yeah, I got my start in aviation in the U.S. Navy, working on round radial engines with pistons and timing magnetos and all that kind of stuff. So now we have $200 million airplanes. That's a flying computer. So things change, and I think is now, especially even with the pandemic, it's an exciting time to get into aviation.
So what proportion of it sounds like what you're talking about? You said round radial engines, and I don't know what that is, but that's okay. I would be eager to admit I don't know. But there's a lot of technical things that you didn't know when you entered this field that you have now had to learn. So I mean, things that didn't even exist when you entered the field. So how much of your job is knowledge, and how much of it is adaptability and thinking on your feet?
You really can't I don't think you really put a percentage on it. One day it might be all knowledge. The next day, adaptability, you have to change with what you find wrong with the airplane. It's very versatile. You have to be very versatile as a mechanic. A round engine it's more like a car engine, has pistons and cylinders, just to answer your question. And it's got a propeller on it.
1940s.
I'm not that old, but yeah, with propeller. But you really can't put a percentage on it, 50% this, 50% that. It depends on the situation, and it's very dynamic.
And we're constantly going to school, either locally here in Chicago or Dallas, or depending on your position, you might actually go to the manufacturer schools. So as the new technologies come out, you're being trained on those new technologies. You're not just being thrown out there saying, okay, figure it out. There's a whole network of continuous training to not only learn the aircraft, but to better yourself as a mechanic, or if you want to advance from being just a mechanic to a member of management. The opportunities at American, and most likely any large airline, is you can go as far as you want.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Chris, Lewis, as you obviously know, Lewis University is known for its aviation. I mean, you're the Flyers. It's understood that Lewis is a leader in that field, and it's such an awesome opportunity to have a partnership with you and your school. What do you feel like right now is your top priority that you share with your students to shape their next steps in the field? How do you decide where to go? Jack and Gary talked about a lot of different angles to take. How do you determine what kind of direction you take your students?
Well, I'm going to say that's a loaded question, Paul, and you'd be ready for a big answer. I think the one thing that we teach students is that, and these two guys, Roddick and Miguel, you can probably attest to this, is we're teaching the basics. To pass their airframe and power plant oral and practical exams, they have to know basics. And then from there, really, without sounding cheesy, the sky is the limit. They can go wherever they want to go. The A&P license allows them to work for airlines, for corporations. I work on the fleet at Lewis along with 5 other mechanics. So we keep up 26 airplanes that are constantly flying, and very different than what Gary and Jack are working on. But the one thing that we instill in all of our students is safety. Like they said, you can't be afraid to say, I don't know, because it's not just a $200 million airplane. For us, it's $175,000 to $400,000 airplane that carries 3 lives. For them, it's a $200 million airplane that carries, I don't know, guys, what the max capacity on a 7.8 is right now, but it could be anywhere from 75 at the regional level up to 400 lives. So that's a big responsibility, and it's something that everybody that goes into this knows that every day they will think about that, and they do their best to make sure that those airplanes are as safe as possible.
Who should consider this kind of program? Like tell us a little bit about the program that you instruct in partnership with Lewis and District 214.
Sure. We get started with an aviation fundamentals course. So the students will take a class that teaches them all about the basics that they need to know, from how to tie down an airplane. So a small general aviation airplane, how to safely secure it to the ramp where they park it, all the way through paperwork and maintenance logs that they're going to need to maintain for the rest of their careers. So we start with a very basic one and then move into a physics course. So they'll learn aviation physics in their second semester. And the instructor that's actually up at District 214 now, his name is Steve Dawdlin. Steve is a CFII, so he's a certified flight instructor, and he's also an A&P mechanic. He worked for McDonnell Douglas for, I believe it was 5 years, went to work for a company in Switzerland for 3 years, then came back and finished his career doing tech writing for the Boeing company for 25 years. So he has actually written maintenance manuals and flight manuals for the F-18 that was produced out of St. Louis. So he worked for Boeing for a long time. So he also will be teaching those little extra things that we have some time to do, as far as things that pilots might want to know, or what mechanics might want to know that pilots need to know as well. So he has a really a breadth of knowledge, breadth of information to share with the students. So it all begins there. And like these guys said, the schooling just never stops. Beyond starting at Lewis, students will learn about not only those radial engines and those recip engines, but they're also going to get into basics on turbines and the jets as well. So it's going to be a quite a journey. The type of student that we're looking for, anybody that's willing to engage in a lifelong learning program. Like these guys said, Gary and Jack, you're never going to stop. It's constant. No matter where you go, you're going to get training on a new airplane. You're going to get retraining on the airplanes that you're currently working on. So it's very important to know that if you like to learn, you're going to continue it for a long time.
Thank you. You know, in high school, a lot of students haven't figured out what they like to learn, you know, and
Mhm.
to see this kind of pathway take flight, no pun intended, but it's a good one though. It's very, very interesting to see this carry things forward, and guys like these that we have here as former students. It's an awesome experience. So in the last couple of years, beginning with some of the news that came out with Boeing and safety things, and then followed by this pandemic and lots of quarantines and the discussion of not being, you know, travel being, you know, restricted, as it were. There's a lot of talk about, you know, commercial flights and the airline industry suffering. Is that a reason for students to not consider this kind of field?
I would say no, for a couple of different reasons. And I'll let Gary and Jack talk about this a little bit, because for 36 and 34 years, they have seen the ups and downs of the industry. And I think they can talk to that more than I have. But the one thing that I would say is that the aviation maintenance technician certificate will allow students to go and do other things in the meantime as well. So if they feel like the pandemic is negatively affecting their employment chances, they can go and work for railroads. The electricians union will push them through school faster than others who don't have any type of training. The amount of electricity, and Roddick just finished both electricity 1 and 2, the amount that you learn in just 2 semesters it far supersedes what some electricians learn in the course of their training or even their careers. So it's really advanced stuff that students are learning. Gary, Jack, you guys want to talk about what
Yeah,
you've seen?
you're absolutely correct. But the pandemic has devastated us right now. But one thing that it hasn't done is that the large percentage of mechanics that are left are the senior mechanics. And there's going to be more retirements in the coming years. Plus, the other thing for students that are juniors or seniors right now, you're looking at a 2-year lead time for your training. So your A&P program is 2 years. And in 2 years, we're going to have more retirements. And Gary and I are both very hopeful that this whole mess is going to be over with, and the commercial aviation industry will pick back up. But as has been stated by Chris, there's corporate aviation, there's general aviation, there's aircraft restoration if you like history, and plus there's tons of other industries that look at an A&P license and give that person a little bit better. They move him up the list as far as a job applicant because he's been trained in a professional manner and has learned more stuff in his training than a lot of people do. So A&P mechanic training is a very well-rounded training. You learn about electronics, you learn about hydraulics, you learn about pneumatics, engines. You learn more in that 2 years of training than a lot of people who don't know what they want to do. So once you get your tickets, the world is yours for the taking. It's just, what is your passion at that time? And I just want to point out that I see we have at least one girl, maybe two or three. It's not something that, if you like solving puzzles and you like working with your hands and learning, this field doesn't discriminate between men or women. We have a large number of female mechanics that they are better suited for some parts of the job as far as they've got tiny hands and they can reach things that some people can't, but they are smart, they're knowledgeable, and with the large aircraft, there's nothing too heavy that they can't pick up because we have special tools to do all the heavy lifting. So I think the biggest part of this job is, do you like solving complex puzzles and working with your mind and just constantly learning? So,
kind of a weird, in a weird sense, since probably March and April when the airlines pretty much shut down, believe it or not, that's been our busiest time because airplanes weren't flying. We had to go through storage and parking procedures, and every 3 or 4 days we have to, the airport here at O'Hare had United and American airplanes parked everywhere. And they can't just sit there for days on end. You still have to maintain them, bring them back to the hangar, run the engines, basically by taxiing them, you're moving the tires so they're not getting flat spots. So we were really, really busy throughout the summer. We had airplanes parked everywhere. And like Jack was saying, and Chris was saying, an A&P license, it'll open up doors for you. Otis Elevator is known for hiring A&P mechanics because they know the training that an A&P mechanic will get. Like Jack mentioned, electronics, electricity, pneumatics, hydraulics. Any industry that employs any of that would be happy to hire an A&P mechanic who's been trained in those fields.
That's amazing. High school history teachers, there's not a lot of career options. You're pretty much there, and you're at a school, so it's cool to see that kind of flexibility. So a lot of the terminology and the pieces that you talk about with respect to your roles is intimidating to people who don't already know some of that information, and it's up to people like Rich Hyde, a fantastic teacher at Hersey High School, to get kids to believe in themselves and feel like they can get into these things and not be chased away. So, Rich, would you tell us a little bit about the coursework that you engage in, and what do you see in students, and how do you get them to engage in this? What kind of things should they know heading into this conversation?
Absolutely. Great question. Piggybacking off of what Chris Stevens just said a moment ago is lifelong learning is, a trait that we strive to have all of our D214 students graduate with. It's going to be one of those things that's going to carry them throughout their entire life in their career, whatever choice they make. But specifically with the aviation pathway, we typically are going to see students either start in one of two places. So it's either going to be in the Introduction to Engineering Design course, which is a Project Lead the Way engineering course. And in that course, what we do is we give the students problems that they then have to solve. So we're really taking the students out of their comfort zone, trying to get those kids to realize that there's solutions out there, and they can go find those solutions and be comfortable with going through and maybe possibly failing once or twice and trying to find that possible solution. And again, how do we overcome those barriers and get to that final solution that's going to work to solve that problem? And again, that's what the intro class is going to do, a very comfortable space for these kids to be able to figure out these things and navigate to that correct solution at the end of the day. The other pathway that students can go by in that first year of exploration in the Aviation Academy is to take the automotive systems class. Okay, it's a NATEF certified class. So what that is the National Automotive Technicians Education Foundation. And that is backed by the Automotive Service Excellence, or ASE certification, that you might see when you go to an automotive shop to get your car fixed. Okay, so these courses are clearly designed to allow kids to be able to set up their path and their career through the aviation technology pathway. So from there, you know, in the automotive systems course or the introduction to engineering course, they can move into the aerospace engineering course. And that course is going to be, again, a project lead the way engineering course, but don't let that scare you. In that aerospace engineering course, what we are talking about on a daily basis is just that. We start off, we talk about the fundamentals of how does a plane fly? We're talking about a 787, and that's a several 100-ton aircraft. How does that get up in the air and stay up in the air? So we talk about those fundamentals behind that process. Then we kind of follow the pathway of becoming pilots and learning how to actually fly an aircraft. And then we get into the actual nitty-gritty of the power plants, the actual build and construction of these airframes. We go into that and explore that before we then move into the space realm. So we also talk about space in that class, as the name says, aerospace. All right, and then from there, what kids can do if they, you know, have a passion for this is move on to the Aviation Academy, which is offered at Chicago Executive Airport, where the kids are given, you know, time throughout their day during senior year to travel to Chicago Executive Airport, take that class. And then Chris, I can't remember the name of the instructor that's moved up there. I apologize, but you know, take that class and learn more about what it is to actually work on an aircraft, a physical aircraft. So what an amazing opportunity in these pathways.
I'm going to jump over to Radek real quick because I know he's got to leave us just a moment early. But Rich, be ready because I might ask you to explain a little bit more of some of those details. Radek, when did you know you were going to go into aviation at the start of high school?
No, definitely not.
Okay, at that time, what did you feel like you were interested in?
I kind of knew I liked working with my hands and all that, so I saw there was the option for PLTW, the Intro to Engineering course. So I'm like, you know what, I'll go for it. You know, I'll see if I like it or not. I know there, you know, in high school we can, you know, go from one class to another for, you know, if we didn't like it. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. You know, what's the worst thing that happens? I don't like it, I switch classes. So I'm like, you know, I'll take the risk, and I loved it actually.
So when did you decide that the aviation was what really hooked you?
I was always partially into aviation because my mom, she worked by an airport. My dad put towards me to space, but my uncle was the person who actually really pushed me towards aviation, because he flew RC drones and all that. So I got hooked onto that. I started to do that, and you know, I saw the chance of, you know, taking the Lewis course. It was the first year. I'm like, you know what? It's my senior year. You know, it can go well, it cannot. You know, but I'll take the risk, and you know, maybe it will help me decide. And you know, I took that course, and it helped me decide. I'm like, I definitely wanted to do it. Plus, my uncle was kind of like slightly like, hey, you should, you know, go aviation, all that. So like the combination of those two like had me like good to go.
And how's it going so far in your experience now as you're a sophomore, junior?
Yes.
Sophomore.
I'm a sophomore. Yes.
How's that? What's your experience been like at Lewis?
It's been great actually. It kind of helped me because my best friend did the exact same thing with me. So you know, we work together in class, but you know, I've made a ton of friends in class, and we work together. You know, we have our separate groups for labs, But even though we have separate groups, we'll help groups out each other. And, it doesn't really matter that, it's different groups. So we try to help each other out. If someone doesn't understand one thing, I'll go over and help. If we don't understand something, they'll come over and help us. So it's kind of a team effort, and, everyone's helping each other, but at the same time, everyone's, working at their own pace.
And as you learned, your friend had to take that math course you did not have to take, right?
Yes. So
how'd that go over?
So he took what's it called, the AP calculus, I think, and I took dual credit college algebra. When I transferred over my credits, I got full 3 credit hours for the math, but he didn't, even though he passed the AP test and got the what's it called, the score for him to get full credit, but he didn't get that. And it's like, it kind of screwed him over. It's like, well, now I have to take math, and I didn't want to. So it's like, ugh.
And in no way is that a dig on AP calculus. It's certainly fine, but finding this pathway and finding what a college is going to do for you is really important. Some colleges want you to go a certain way if you are interested in that thing. And sometimes students just don't know that. So really paying attention to what your next steps are critically important. Just going along with things is really kind of a recipe for misstepping and missing an opportunity. And I know that as Radek has got to take off here, I want to just say much appreciated to you, Radek. This is someone who's so excited about aviation and what he's doing that he rode his motorcycle to Elk Grove High School on a cold day. I remember that day, with toting along with him parts that he had welded to show me the projects that he was working on, and then to show students at Elk Grove the kind of things that they were doing at Lewis. And so if you want to find out what's to like about the program and then the Lewis program, Radek Lukács is your guy to talk to. So thanks, Radek.
No
and
problem.
I know you got to take off.
Mhm.
Miguel, we'll jump to you. And I want to hear about your experience. What year are you at Lewis now?
So I'm a freshman in Lewis as of right now.
So tell me about your sequence of courses in high school, and what kind of things did you use to make your decision?
So originally, I started off high school. I wanted to be an engineer just because I love math, I love physics, I love the whole concept of everything. And so I took the PLTW course, the intro, and at first, like the first class that I took, my first elective, I loved it. And from there, I wasn't sure like what kind of engineering I wanted because it's such a broad, like there's so many fields out there. So I took a manufacturing class, and I realized I didn't really like that one. So then my junior year, I took civil and aerospace, and I took civil, and I really liked that class, but I just didn't really connect with it like I did with aerospace. And just simply like taking that one class, I felt like that's what I wanted to do. Like there was nothing else on my mind.
That's amazing. That's outstanding. And what made your decision for you to really go into aviation after high school?
So in terms of that, I think it was the Aviation Academy,
Mm-hmm.
the like senior year class that I took, because I thought it was so cool, such a cool experience to be able to work with other students, other people who like this field as much as I did, and to work as a team, and just simply like I loved it.
How did you like was it a benefit or was it a burden to have to leave the high school to go to the airport? At Elk Grove, we're a long way down here, relatively speaking, and it's a trek up to Chicago Executive Airport. Was it a tough thing or a good thing that you had that opportunity?
Well, the fact that I had that opportunity, I feel like it was a really good thing, because not many students at other schools or in the time like prior to this, like they didn't have that, and I think it's amazing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Rich, you teach you teach a wide range of students in your Project Lead the Way courses. What percentage of your students would you estimate would like to leave high school during the day at some point?
100%.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Right. So why don't
Yeah.
we just, but it's school. Shouldn't they be there all day? Shouldn't they be in classes all day?
You know what, you would think so, but the opportunities to actually go and see and actually experience these things off at Chicago Executive are second to none. You really can't replicate the experiences that they're having in those 3-hour segments, 3 days a week at the high school level, because we simply don't have the room for, bringing an airplane in to Hersey High School.
Right. And we do, fortunately, because of our great partners, have a ton of really quality equipment and opportunities for our kids. But you're totally right. There's no substitute for actually being able to touch the airplane and see what it is that that you're going to have to figure out in order to be able to do that. And Chris, as you've seen, what do you, this is a tough one, but what do you see as the what do you see staying as it is, and what do you see evolving in the program that we currently have in the Aviation Academy with Lewis?
I think the big thing to stay as is would be this fundamentals course that we offer, just to give kids that experience to kind of dabble, if I can, in aviation. But we might be looking at some more advanced coursework that might tailor students from different areas, because right now we're targeting most of our students from the aerospace engineering classes, but there's a lot that could transfer over from automotive to aviation. So I could see where we might start gaining some more interest from that side. And there's a good opportunity with the instructor that we have, that we might be able to offer some courses next year from the pilot side. So we can potentially look at some courses where students might be able to dabble and see if they want to become pilots as well. But this is, if I could jump off of what Mr. Hyde said about these opportunities, I went to a Catholic high school in Chicago, and these opportunities didn't exist. For fun, so that I could get out of a traditional class, I took pottery. You can all laugh.
That was nothing wrong with pottery.
But I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was told, because it was a college prep school, you're going to go to college. And I went to college, and as I would tell my parents still today, I wasted 4 years of money getting a degree in criminal justice after trying 4 of them in 4 years. And there's nothing wrong with a criminal justice degree. It just wasn't meant for me, but that was the fastest one I could get done and graduate in 4 years. Went on to get a master's degree while I was working at Lewis, and then got my A&P license after that, and a bachelor's degree in aviation. So take advantage of these opportunities where you can try out some of these things. And it's okay if you tell us at the end of that Aviation Academy course, or even the dual credit with Project Lead the Way, that you don't like it. For the cost to you to try it out, rather than wasting college tuition dollars doing it, try it. Try whatever you can.
Yep. The final word, we'll go back to the veterans. The veterans, for Gary and Jack. You've seen it all. You were there at the beginning of flight itself, and now, all right, maybe not quite, but how important is it, do you think it is for students to see the actual field prior to going into the educational training?
I think it's fantastic, and every student who has the opportunity should do it. I didn't go that particular route. I went the route of the U.S. military and the U.S. Navy is how I got my interest in aviation. And take advantage of every single opportunity you can. I think it's basically what Chris was saying, and Rich Hyde, of course. You have to take advantage of the opportunities. Miguel, I applaud you immensely, and Radek, who's unfortunately left. Take advantage of the opportunities. You have to take advantage of them.
This is the best time to try to figure out which direction you want to take your life in, and without trying something, you'll never know. Like Miguel said, he tried civil engineering, and it really wasn't tripping his trigger, and the aviation engineering did. And I was involved with aviation ever since I was a little kid. My dad had a plane, and so I was lifelong into this. But it's something that you become very passionate about it. It's a career that I think most people who do it become passionate about it. And I could speak for Gary, that we've both had a ton of fun doing it. So um, I've done things I never thought I would have done, traveled to places I never thought I'd go.
Mhm.
But yeah, at the high school level, given this opportunity, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to see what it's about.
And
Thank you
it
so
is a
much.
passion to segue on what Jack was. It is a passion. We joke in the aviation field, you have skydrawl, which is hydraulic fluid instead of blood flowing through your veins. Or coffee,
Or coffee.
sometimes coffee too.
So that's
But
how-
it really is a passion. And once you get into it, it never gets out of your system.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. Thank you so much. An amazing panel, Jack O'Callahan and Gary Percy with American Airlines, Chris Stevens with Lewis University, Miguel Reyes and Radislav Lukars, former 214 graduates, and Rich Hyde, technology instructor and aviation pathway instructor at Hersey High School. And we got a tight-knit group of teachers across the district to help kids get into this pathway. There's no more, for me, I think there's no more exciting time that I've seen to be a high school student. There's so many things available. The options are unlimited. And if they're currently limited, someone's going to find a way to push beyond the current limits and create a new opportunity. And this is something that is unthinkable in most places. And it's right here for the taking for District 214 students. So it's an exciting time to see this happen. Thank you guys for your passion and for sharing it with this group of attendees.